and the park lived up to its reputation.
Six Flags America has a reputation as one of the worst parks.
Six Flags America is said to be one of the worst parks in the country, with a supposed subpar coaster lineup and a horrible guest experience. But my trip to the park was quite the opposite. After visiting for the first time last September and experiencing what the park has to offer, I realized you should not listen to the hate about Six Flags America, and here's why. It isn't a review of an amusement park without roller coasters, so let's start basic with them. Joker's Jinx is an intense premiere launch coaster, and while I only got one ride in the cold rain, I've done other versions of this coaster such as Poltergeist in Texas, and the ride doesn't let up much, especially with no mid-course. The inversions are all very intense, and some of the low-to-the-ground turns give great positive G-forces. Overall, this is a great supporting coaster in Six Flags America's lineup. It may even crack the top 3 for some people. Wild One is a PTC wooden coaster that is over 100 years old, and it runs very well for its age, especially since it has been relocated. The airtime in most rows is very surprising, and the helixes are very fun. Batwing is a very rare Vekoma Flying Dutchman coaster, and it is a big improvement from the prototype at Carowinds. The transitions are much smoother and the laying down portion doesn't have as many aggressive elements, which makes the ride more comfortable. The coaster still manages to be very fun and intense though, with good forces and a great flying portion. The only downside this ride suffers is a lot of downtime, which is standard for this model, especially since it's very rare to come by parts. Roar was one of the first GCI coasters, and it is a very rough ride. The laterals still manage to be amazing and the airtime is good, but the jackhammering doesn't allow for an enjoyable experience. The coaster also doesn't have the Millennium Flyer trains and opts to use the PTC ones instead, which are much more uncomfortable. Roar has potential if they add some Titan track to the layout and give it Millennium or Infinity Flyers, but for now it's mediocre at best. Firebird was the start of B&M and has gone through many changes over the years, including a relocation from Great America and a floorless conversion. But for all of that, I thought it ran pretty well. The inversions were quite forceful, and having no mid-course certainly helped the pacing. The ride was decently rough, but it's not horrible for being as old as it is. The thematic effects are also very surprising for a Six Flags park, with a nice queue and even some pyrotechnics on ride. Superman Ride of Steel is arguably the headlining coaster at Six Flags America, with lots of different sensations packed into its course. The airtime in all rows is incredible as expected from an Intamin Hyper, and the turns contain lots of positives. There are some dead spots with the 2 straight track portions, but these moments offer a good breather from the countless airtime hills at the end of the ride. Overall, this is the best coaster at the park and deserves a mention in my top 50. While I did ride most of the park's coasters, I was unable to get on 3 of them. Mind Eraser is undergoing a refurbishment with better restraints, but I have ridden similar SLCs, and they're not good by any means. The other 2 coasters are made for families, with a Reverchon Spinning Mouse, Rage-Cation, and a Zamperla Kiddie Coaster, Great Chase. As for food, the park seems to have standard Six Flags food, with many theme park standards such as burgers and pizza. While the park doesn't excel in food, the atmosphere as a whole is amazing. The small Six Flags park feels incredible, with many beautiful pieces of landscaping and very aesthetically pleasing buildings that add a unique charm to the park. The layout of the park is odd, as the park has no coasters in the front. As you make your way towards the back, the coaster number increases, but there is yet another gap with no coasters. Superman and Batwing are both tucked away in the corner of the park, and both coasters don't receive lines until late in the day. The park also doesn't have much theming at all, with the most themed ride being Firebird, which is still at an intermediate level for Six Flags. The merchandise also isn't great, mostly with DC and other IP merchandise being sold, but this is standard for most Six Flags parks, as it is hard to come by actual ride merch that isn't themed after an IP. Overall, Six Flags America is a very underrated park with many great rides and a beautiful atmosphere. Many people sleep on this park, and I think it is not as bad as people make it out to be. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe on my road to 2,000 subscribers. This is Zero G signing out. Have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next train.